Hello there, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name's Emma, nice to meet you. Thank you so much for stopping by. So this is going to be a little bit different. Long story short, I don't know how to even start this video, but basically I just listened to Billie Eilish's recent single that came out a few weeks back called Your Power, and it really affected me at a deep level. Because I knew exactly what she was talking about, and I also read the article that was done on her from Vogue, where she basically just speaks out about minors working in the entertainment industry and when it comes to minors being taken advantage of. There's a little quote that I wanted to say, and this is in pertaining to her song. She says, "It's an open letter to people who take advantage, mostly men. I would like people to listen to me and not just try to figure out who I'm talking about, because it's not about that. It's really not at all about one person. You might think it's because she's in the music industry. No, dude, it's everywhere. I don't know one girl or woman who hasn't had a weird experience or a really bad experience. And men too, young boys, are taken advantage of constantly." I just wanted to respond to that as, yes, that's true, and also it's very prevalent in theater. Basically, long story short, I experienced, and I know that other people experienced, inappropriate moments with adults when they were younger. So I kind of wanted to share my experience as a teenage performer, because I feel like when it comes to working with child actors, it's pretty straightforward, but when it comes to working with teenagers, I feel like the line is blurred a little bit, and I'll discuss my reasons why. Before I get into this, there is a trigger warning in terms of verbal and mental abuse. So now for the fun part, disclaimers. This is just my experience. I am not speaking on behalf of others who were a part of my experience. They have told me stories of what they've been through, but I am not going to share those because those are not my stories and that is not my place. The theater that I'm going to be talking about was run by different people at the time when I was a teenager. Those people no longer work there. No names will be mentioned in this due to privacy, as well as I'm terrified that people are going to come after me and say that I'm lying and that I'm bashing them for no reason, and don't really want that. Hi all, it's Editing Me here. So while I was doing this video, I realized while filming that I did need to make some names for people in this story, but since I was thinking on the fly, I accidentally gave one person a name that sounded too similar to the real name of another person in this story. And so I had to blur it out and remove the audio from that. So moving forward, if you hear any names, they're fake. They're not the real names of the people. I'm just telling my story, and you can either take it or leave it. And also, just as a quick note, if you have seen my previous videos, I sometimes use humor when I talk about stuff that, in a nutshell, I use humor when I talk about bad experiences in my past. It's the way that I handle it, and it's the way that I heal from it. I'm gonna do my very best to keep this as straightforward as possible, but if I end up making one of my remarks in a funny manner, please know that it's just how I talk about these sort of situations, and it's not me joking about it. So without further ado, let's begin. I started performing when I was 11. I basically performed in the musicals that my middle school offered every year, as well as taking classes at a equity theater in my hometown called Northern Stage. It's basically this very lovely, high-level professional theater company. And at one point, their education program created a youth company called Northern Stage's Ensemble Company that started in 2007, I think. And basically this program was completely free, and kids learn all aspects of theater and even perform in productions. I didn't audition, but I did take one of their winter intensives in February of 2008. And the woman who ran the education program saw me and invited me to be a part of the ensemble company. I was a part of it for its entirety. They gave us a lot of responsibilities. We basically did everything from marketing the shows to ushering and performing, doing tech, helping out with costumes, sets, and painting. Basically, whatever you can think of in relation to productions, you name it. The woman who ran this program, well, I guess in the best way I can say is that she didn't treat us as kids or as equals. A very competitive dynamic was created between the kids, basically teens against teens and kids against kids. Teenagers were told that we were in the ugly phase and therefore will not get any work, and therefore the young kids were her favorites in the program. We were basically running the shows all on our own, with very little guidance or supervision. So whenever something went wrong, we would immediately get screamed or yelled at. Sometimes we would be threatened or actually be hit by a full water bottle. We were basically worked as hard as we possibly could. We met every Wednesday afternoon, but if we were in a show, we would also have afternoon rehearsals and rehearsals over the weekends. So depending on if you're in a show or not, you may have a very light amount of responsibilities or a lot more. I personally found it very difficult to juggle all the responsibilities of the ensemble company, as well as, being a teenager in high school. And it was hard, and it definitely led to a lot of anxiety to be built up around that program. I remember when we would have our gift exchange for the holidays, we would basically do like a Secret Santa kind of thing. And one of the gifts that she would give is a golden ticket, which basically means if you do anything wrong and you know that this woman will yell or scream at you, you can give her this golden ticket and she will leave you alone and give you a free pass. I remember that I got that one time and I was literally being bargained and begged for it, because to say that it was a golden ticket was an understatement. Looking back, I think we were treated like dogs. People may rebuttal with this, which is fine. I actually spoke to family members who thought that due to this treatment, it was good for me to go through so that I could create more of a backbone, which is fine. But I feel like that this could have been done in a much better way. I have worked with other people that are deemed as difficult to work with in the industry, but when it came to the woman who ran this program, everyone else that I worked with was a freaking cakewalk. Sorry if this looks off. I had to delete some things off of my phone so I can keep recording. That's great. To also finish off of what I was saying earlier, I was also in a situation where, long story short, my family life wasn't that great. So I don't know if that made me feel like everything felt more elevated to me at the time. I just felt like it was a lot to handle all at once. So fast forward to the summer of 2008, we had an opportunity to audition for Northern Stage's production of Les Miserables, which was going to be their holiday show. They were looking for 3 kids to play the children in the production, as well as 2 teenagers to be in the ensemble. I was very grateful and very lucky to be cast in it. I was the only teenager to be cast in it, however. I just felt like more tension was built up between me and some other teenagers in the program. But some of them were also very supportive and very kind. But the moment when I found out that I got the show, this moment where I felt like it should have been a time of joy and excitement, was kind of destroyed very quickly. And this was because I was doing a summer intensive at Northern Stage at that time, and one of the women that was running the program, she was a full-grown woman, just want to make note of that, was a former ensemble member from a previous ensemble program that the same woman created at a previous theater company, I mean. She congratulated me for getting the show, and then immediately asked me if I was ever in a car accident, because she noticed that I was knock-kneed, and basically said that due to this, I'm going to have issues in pursuing my career, especially when it came to dancing, and then promptly told me that it wouldn't hurt me to get on a treadmill every once in a while. I was 15 at the time. I think I just recently turned 15 when this happened. So suffice to say, what was supposed to be a very big, glorious moment in my life immediately got clouded over with this small statement. I took that advice very seriously, because I was at an age where I was basically soaking up anything that I can learn from, and I knew that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, and I was immediately told that these 2 were big problems and I needed to fix them, and I need to address them now. So you can kind of assume what road I ended up going down for a very long time. I made jokes of it in my previous videos, but I'll just leave it at that. In terms of the show Les Mis in itself, I felt like the creative team and the actors that were hired from New York to do it were amazing and very kind and loving. They all made the remark that they were very surprised that I was only 15. And basically made the comments that I looked so mature for my age and that I carry myself in a much more mature manner than other teenagers. Gossip did get a little bit TMI in some places. Like, I basically knew who was hooking up with who. Don't think that should have been appropriate for me to know. And also, I was more part of the conversation because the way that the dressing rooms were set up, the children were in their own separate dressing room, but I was in a dressing room with 2 other adult women in the cast. There was only one night that I remember this happening. I don't remember if this happened more than once, but there was a night where someone brought in a few 6-packs into the green room for the actors to drink while we were still doing tech, which was a little bit of a red flag to me at the time and also made me feel very jealous that I couldn't partake. And the one thing that really bothered me was there was this girl who was also in the ensemble company, we'll call her, and we had very big tension between one another. Looking back, that was absolutely pointless and stupid. But basically, we were very competitive with one another. She really wanted to get into Les Mis, but she didn't. But she decided to be on the costume crew. She's very approachable and very much more outgoing than I am. So when it came to her talking to the actors and the creative team, it was much more easier for her to be on an equal level with them, I guess, per se. But this is just what I witnessed. I'm not speaking from her point of view. She was also 16 at the time. And so I was getting the vibe that because she was 16, the adults felt like they could be a bit more relaxed around her than around me. And it made me jealous because it made me feel like, I don't know, I was mainly jealous of her because she was also getting a lot of attention from men specifically, and I got incredibly jealous of that because, you know, I was at an age where I was incredibly hormonal and a lot of things were changing in my mind and in my body, and I was watching this girl who was close to my age and she was getting attention from people that I wanted, and I felt like that since I wasn't getting that attention and that I was constantly being reminded that I was in my ugly phase at least once a week, basically I felt worthless and I didn't feel beautiful and I just didn't have any sort of self-confidence. So I was just envious of her self-confidence. And I wish I had that. So the ensemble company came to an end after 3 years, basically due to budget cuts. When the announcement was made, a lot of kids were crying, a lot of families were angry. I was relieved, mainly because I was about to finish my junior year, and the thought of me doing this one more year while having to juggle schoolwork and ensemble and college applications and college auditions and potentially being in another stage production over there, I was just overwhelmed with that, and I felt like if it continued for another year, I had no choice but to keep doing it because I was being told day after day that this was going to look good on my resume. I do want to quickly make note that I've been talking about stuff in the professional world of theater, but I do want to say that I experienced some very inappropriate behavior from people in just the general community. My high school decided to do some inappropriate shows. During my sophomore year, we did Finian's Rainbow, and my junior year did Kiss Me Kate. And specifically Finian's Rainbow, that was the most inappropriate thing we could have ever done. It was just, it was disgusting. And of course with Kiss Me Kate, just with all of the sexual innuendos and everything, I felt like it was kind of blurring the lines a little bit. But the one that affected me the most was that I had a dance teacher when I was in high school. I feel like I would be putting it nicely if I said that the lines were blurred, but basically there was no line when it came to her being a teacher and her being your friend. And this also led to her trying to set me up with a friend of hers who was 24 and I was 17 at the time. They may sound minor, but to me, I feel like that they're just as impactful as what I experienced in the professional world. So during my senior year, the education program at Northern Stage was kind of like basically nothing. It was pretty much non-existent, but they did offer something called an observership. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. It was so vague when they announced it. Basically, there were observerships where you can be a part of the production in a nutshell. And basically what I ended up doing is that I created this observership as an internship as part of my school to get school credit. And so what I would do is that for my last class, I would go to Northern Stage and I would either help paint the sets for whatever production is going on, or I would observe rehearsal for that day. I thought it was the perfect mastermind plan. Like, I was getting out of school early, I was going to chill out with theater people, and I was getting credit for it to graduate. Like, I was like, this is brilliant. I am a brilliant being right now. So I started observing the first show of the season. Originally, I was actually going to be a part of it, but I ended up not doing it because of two reasons. Basically, long story short, it conflicted with my high school musical, and if I didn't do all 4 musicals, then I wouldn't have been considered for a scholarship for college. And also, the other thing is that if I was going to do that show, I would also be with, and I just didn't want to deal with that. So instead, when I saw that there was an observership, I decided to do that so I can be a part of it. So during the first show of their season, there was a guy, let's call him Mark, and from what I recall, when rehearsals started to begin, he immediately started talking to me, was very nice, but when he found out that I was 17, he immediately cut me off and started talking to who happened to be turning 18 during the run. As you can already assume, he sounds like a piece of trash. The cast in general was really lovely, really sweet. It was a really magical experience that I went through. Again, when it came to the divide between the teens and adults, it really wasn't there, and I don't know if I met up with the cast after sometimes, but when it came to the divide, it definitely was very much blinded. I was invited to hang out with the cast, and, you know, alcohol was being served, people were rolling up joints. Me and our friend who was also in the show were also invited to hang out with them at the local bar after shows and tech, but we had to keep it on the down low because we were minors. So basically those were moments that, looking back, were obviously inappropriate. So fast forward to the spring of 2011, when I was going to graduate from senior year. Mark came back for another show in the season, and we ended up crossing paths quite a bit because the place that I was taking dance classes also happened to be the gym club that actors were offered a free membership to. We would run into each other a lot, and it would get to the point where my dance teacher would notice, and she would even comment on how he was looking at me, and she thought that he was interested in me. Again, also inappropriate. And when I saw him in the show, he invited me to go to the bar with him, and he even tried to sneak me a shot, but thankfully that immediately got shut down because the bartender saw what was going on, and I immediately left the bar after that. I felt incredibly guilty and just very overwhelmed and very confused. Basically, I felt like, in terms of my experience with professional theater, it all ended up being entangled with shows that were very sexually driven. I remember in Les Mis, for my blocking for the prostitute scene, I was blocked to be the furthest downstage out of all of the ensemble women that were also a part of it. There were 4 ensemble women in it, and I was the one that was the furthest downstage. So, I don't know. Right now I feel like I'm losing my train of thought. So I apologize if I feel like this is turning into word vomit. But during high school, I basically just felt very out of place. I took on this persona after being told that I look older and I am more mature for my age. And it made me feel very lost and confused and frustrated, basically because I felt like I wasn't able to really fully connect with others. And I think it's why I was so drawn to spend time with adults outside of school and rehearsal, and they felt comfortable around me. And after being called ugly numerous times by a grown woman, it was really nice and comforting to be told that I wasn't by others. But unfortunately, this, all of this kind of snowballed to a situation that I found myself in at the end of high school that, led to a very, traumatic moment in my life. And after it happened, I felt a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, and a lot of fear, because I felt like that if the people that I worked with in the professional industry, I felt like I would be shunned. And I also found out that certain people found out what happened, and whenever they looked at me or interacted with me, I felt like I had basically a red letter A on my chest. So I felt I felt very alone during that time. It took me until very recently to realize that I was the victim in that situation. And that's what I experienced as a teenage performer. I have no idea how to end this video. Basically, with everything that's been going on, especially since the Me Too movement, I've been trying to figure out what occurred in my teenage years specifically. And for a very long time, I thought that what I endured was normal behavior, and actually even not positive behavior, but I feel like I should be treating that as a special time in my life and be very grateful of what I was given in terms of opportunities, because I was given a lot of opportunities, and I am very grateful and very appreciative of those, but there were also a lot of negatives that came out of it, and a lot of trauma that came out of it. Billie Eilish actually, I think, kind of sums this all up very well in terms of my mindset then and looking back on it now. It's an insane thing. Young women, we're expected to know and do everything and be everyone's mom when we're like 15. I used to not understand why age mattered. And of course you feel like that when you're young, because you're the oldest you've ever been. You feel like you're so mature and you know everything. People forget that you can grow up and realize shit was fucked up when you were younger. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. A lot of healing, a lot of therapy. I do want to make note that Northern Stage is under new management. It has been under new management for a while now, for the past 7 or 8 years. And I know the people who run the education program, and to say that it's phenomenal would be an understatement. Like, I wish that that sort of caliber was available when I was that age. However, I know that that doesn't mean that chances are there are teenagers in other places of the world that are experiencing inappropriate behavior with adults and may possibly have had a similar experience to mine. I don't know what sort of solution needs to be done. Allison Stoner just recently came out with a really good video in terms of saying what certain things should be implemented for child actors in the TV and film world. However, I don't know if those exact things can be applied in the theater world. Maybe they can. We can try. Working with minors is always going to be a thing, no matter what. I'm not saying that minors should never be working in theater again. I just think we just need to be more careful when we work with teenagers, be more cautious and more aware of what we say and do around them. because at the end of the day, they are still children and they are still minors. And I think that calling them mature or commenting about how well they carry themselves at that age is actually more damaging than having it be a positive thing. To me, I think it's just as damaging as saying that they're going through the ugly phase. My personal belief system in terms of working with kids is that you can treat kids as equals, but they're still kids. And these moments of growth are incredibly crucial, especially with teenagers, because they are going through something life-changing and it's affecting them both mentally and physically. And just saying one little thing or doing one small action can change the rest of their life. And I feel like I'm living proof of that. As I said earlier, I would love for this to become a conversation in the theater industry. I think it's very important. And if you are someone who went through a traumatic time in their life as a teenager, I see you. I love you. You're not alone. And it gets better. Okay, I'm so sorry, this is really awkward to finish, but I'm gonna go and watch 90 Day Fiancé and enjoy the rest of my day. I love you all very much. Thank you so much for listening if you watched the entirety of this video. May you be happy, healthy, safe, and at ease, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.